In this video, I'm going to show you 5 super quick, helpful tips that you can use to save a shitload of money so you can afford whatever you want: solo travel, Gucci flip-flops, stock market funds, whatever you want, right after this shitty intro. A year ago, I was broke as shit, working 2 part-time jobs to save up money to do the solo traveling adventure. I was making the equivalent of around $20,000 a year. If you boil that down to hourly wage on a full-time schedule, I was making anywhere from like $11 to $12 an hour. And I managed to save $10,000 of that money, almost half my income, all because of these tips that I'm going to show you right now. So the first tip is to skip breakfast and drink coffee or tea in the morning. I know you're thinking, what the hell, is that really a tip? Yes, it is. 5 years ago, I started drinking coffee exclusively in the mornings, and I found myself every morning skipping breakfast because of it. I just frankly didn't feel hungry. Well, I figured out later on that there's a thing called intermittent fasting. What you do is you drink coffee or tea in the morning, you drink a lot of water, and you don't get hungry until 1 or 2 p.m. You essentially fast during the morning hours, and you don't eat your first meal until lunchtime. Now that's called intermittent fasting, and you can ask your nutritionist or your fitness friends if it's actually healthy. From what I've researched, it is. However, I did it for financial reasons, and because this is a video on saving money, I'll tell you the financial side of things. And because you're drinking coffee or tea in the morning, well, you're skipping breakfast. And because you skip breakfast, then you're not buying groceries for breakfast, which means that you spend less money for that. You consume less, and that means you spend less money. Spending less money equals more savings. That just saves money out the wazoo, because on a day-to-day basis, you're essentially cutting off a meal, which is directly affecting your wallet. So I highly recommend it, not only for the health reasons. This is actually really common, so give it a shot. It might be hard for a couple days, but you'll get used to it. And if you end up liking it, well, you'll save some more time sleeping in the morning for work, because you don't have to spend the time making breakfast. Tip number 2 is a psychological tip, but it's very helpful. I call this necessary and unnecessary spending. So most people use debit or credit cards to make their purchases. If you don't, then I would consider you a drug dealer. Go through your internet bank account and find the section that's called statements. Go through the past 6 months and track every single purchase you've made on your debit or your credit card. Now, when you track this, you're gonna make 2 categories. You're gonna make a category for necessary spending and a category for unnecessary spending. Go through each statement account, so like the statement account for February or January, like usually it's by the month. What you're gonna do is write down every purchase you've made on your credit or debit card as a necessary payment or an unnecessary payment. For example, necessary payments would be car payments, rent, groceries, insurance, anything along those lines. And of course, unnecessary spending would be like Netflix subscriptions, a tub of ice cream, fluffy socks that you don't need. Stuff like that would be unnecessary. Now, the biggest thing is the unnecessary portion. You can't get away from the necessary portion of things. You need that to survive. So I'm not saying not to pay your car payment, but look at the unnecessary side of things and really look at what you're spending your money in the unnecessary category. Is it a Netflix subscription that you don't really use? Can you find other ways to make that cheaper? Can you share it with someone? Go through the unnecessary portion of that category and get really familiar with your brain on what you classify as necessary payments and unnecessary. When you're going out and you're making purchases in general, your mind's gonna remember, hey, is this a necessary payment or is this an unnecessary payment? Because you already went through all the statements to know that. Can you make the unnecessary category cheaper for yourself? And if you can, go ahead and do that. You're gonna save so much money just by understanding your spending habits, understanding what unnecessary payments are. Everybody has a guilty pleasure. Mine was coffee. I wasn't gonna judge myself for spending money on a cup of coffee. So do the same for you. Be realistic, be brutally honest with yourself. Do you really need that thing? If you do, just put it in the necessary side. But this is where you're trying to save money, okay? So if you are spending money on something you know you don't use often, just find a different way to make it cheaper or just completely eliminate it. You'll save so much money doing that. Step number 3, live with your parents. And you're probably thinking, wow, is that really a tip? Yes. You spend the most amount of money on rent. Hands down. You will not find anything more expensive than rent. If you're trying to invest in yourself, it gets really hard to have a life on the side to do that. So cut down where you can. Living with your parents is gonna motivate you for a couple reasons. 1, you don't wanna be at home. You're not gonna be at home when you're being productive. I was rarely at home. I was spending my whole day trying to level up in my life. At the end of the day, living at home propelled me even further to get to the next step of my life, and I credit that. My parents were great, obviously. My parents provided for me, but living at home taught me patience, but it also propelled me to work as hard as I could to get out. If you don't have a good relationship with your parents, then I understand, but try to find out a way to make your rental prices cheaper. Can you move to a cheaper spot? Can you get another roommate? Can you rent out your room for Airbnb? You know, there are tons of ways to make your rental price cheaper, but it's up to you to decide that. You know, are you willing to live in a cheaper place and temporarily experience that discomfort for the next step in life? Because I truly believe that if you live in discomfort, that's where the best work comes. That's where the best motivation comes. That's where the best discipline comes. Because you don't want to stay there forever, and your mind's going to find ways to propel you forward out of that situation. So live with your parents. It's going to save you money on rent. And frankly, it's one of the biggest productivity hacks that gets you out of that situation, that levels you up in the next stage of life. I highly recommend it. Fourth tip is to use phone apps, which there are a couple ones that are really, really good. The first one is ACORNS. I used this app, and over a year I made around $800. Essentially how it works is, let's say for example you're spending money on a coffee that's $1.70. Well, ACORNS, what they're gonna do is take the remaining 30 cents that goes up to that $2, so they're gonna round up to the nearest $2, from $1.70 to $2, they're gonna take that 30 cents and they're gonna charge your card, but put it into an investment account. And it's gonna stay there. So essentially you're kind of paying a little bit more for your daily purchases, but it's just a roundup. It's like paying like charity or paying like a tip. But you're putting it into its own savings account, and it does this automatically, so you don't have to manually do it. Well, over enough time, if you keep making purchases in your daily life, ACORNS will keep putting more money, and you'll eventually start gaining interest because that money is being put into its own account. If you know anything about finance or like investing, the more money you put in now, the more money you're gonna earn later on. That's just how it works. I highly recommend it. You can learn more about it in the link, but that's a good app that I used, ACORNS. There's another app called Daily Budget, which essentially what you do in the app is you set your income, so the amount of money that you make, and then you also set the amount of savings you want. So 10% savings, 20% of total savings. So whatever savings goal you set, it's gonna calculate how much you can spend on a day-to-day basis so that you end up reaching your savings goal. If I make $20,000, the app could tell me I could spend $15 a day or $20 a day. It is very helpful. It's a very simple app, and it's helped a lot of people. It's helped me really show you how much money you can afford on a day-to-day basis. I highly recommend it. And the fifth tip is take up free hobbies. Look, we spend money because we're bored. Half the time, you spend money because you want to get drinks with a friend, or you spend money to watch a movie. I get it. Being bored equals spending money. Instead of actually spending money out with my friends, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I played D&D with a bunch of my friends. It was totally free, and I had a really, really good time. Probably more of a good time playing D&D than doing some of the other paid activities. This doesn't have to be like board games or D&D sports. Like, we'll go out for a walk, create like a community event where you guys play, you know, sport like soccer, football, whatever. Focus on free, fun activities, because the less bored you are in your daily life, the less you're gonna spend. Keep in mind that the more engaged you are with free activities, you're just gonna spend less time trying to find ways to spend your money because you're being busy with doing free stuff that's fun. Pretty much just like boil it down common sense. If you're enjoying your life for free, why would you ever spend money on something that is unnecessary? So, I mean, if you're a nerd, play D&D. It's really fun. You can play it online or go through meetup.com. That's a good website. You can find a good community of whatever you're into, sport events, barbecue, game nights, anything that just is free and that's fun. And you should be interested in it so you can be engaged and not be bored, which therefore will save you money. Doing free things is the key. And to end with, all these tips are really not going to affect your life drastically. If people think when you save money, you have to drastically reduce your lifestyle and you're not gonna be happy doing that. There was absolutely no difference in my happiness before I was using these tips compared to after using them. Absolutely none. My life felt the same. In fact, I was actually a little bit more happier because I was saving money and I could see that in my bank account. So if you really use these tips, I think it will improve your life and your happiness levels because you're saving money. You're improving your life situation. You're taking that money and you're building savings for your own endeavors. You know, there are ways to save money without having to be miserable doing so. And these tips are designed to help you be happier doing it. So if you like this video, like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching. Hopefully these tips can be of use to you because they were of use to me when I was saving money when I was broke. That's all. Have a good day and save money, become rich, and flex on your haters.